Welcome to RESIDE by Sotheby's International Realty. I'm Eric Weinbrecht, your host and guide as we dive into the pages of RESIDE magazine to discover more about the incredible people, places, and brands featured within. Please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to @Sotheby's Realty on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube to experience incredible homes and stories from around the world. Without further delay, let's get started. All around the world, luxury developments are grabbing headlines. Today, we're focusing on downtown Miami and the Zaha Hadid-designed 1,000 museum high-rise. I'm happy to welcome Louis Birdman, the project's developer, to tell us more about what will be one of Miami's most prestigious addresses. Hi, Louis.
How are you, Eric?
I'm doing okay. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to be with us here today.
No problem.
Let's before we start talking about the development there in Miami, tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get into this industry?
Well, I'm an architect by training. I practiced architecture from probably around the mid 80s or so into the late 90s. And part of my architecture practice sort of took me in the direction of development, having worked with a lot of developers as clients. So I eventually sort of migrated out of the practice of architecture in general and got more involved directly in real estate development.
And I'm sure, in that industry, it's taken you to a variety of places, right? So, outside of the U.S. or typically just inside the U.S.?
No, inside the U.S. As a architect, my practice was primarily in Florida, although I was licensed in a few other states during the time that I practiced architecture. But most of my work was in Florida. As a developer, my work started out kind of all over Florida and then migrated into some other states within the United States, but never outside the U.S.
How did Miami wind up being the home for this particular project?
Well, there was a very unique opportunity on a site, a very coveted site in downtown Miami that had not been developed while everything around it was being developed over the last, call 15 years or so. And after the downturn in the market, when we saw the market starting to come back in 2011 or so, we started looking for some interesting opportunities. And this site came up as an opportunity, knowing that in the prior cycle, when the property owner had the property at one time in the past under contract or several times in the past under contract, and then none of those moving forward because of the downturn in the market, we saw an opportunity maybe to get this interesting piece of property under contract and potentially do something very special on the site.
So, the site is special for sure, but you mentioned several times the market in Miami. What's the market like? How does the market support something like this?
Well, Miami very typically has had historically a very robust condominium market. And like markets that, are robust and sought after, they tend to go through ups and downs. Miami's been one of these markets, and South Florida in general, where the market has gone through these sort of, peaks and valleys and cycles. But the market, if you kind of look at it over a long period of time, has continued to grow, over time. So every time we, reach a low, it hasn't been as low as the previous lows. And every time we seem to reach a high, it seems to be higher than a previous high. So, overall, it's been a very, active, very robust condominium market, probably, one of the most active, in the United States.
So, it seems like it's a perfect time then, right? You have the right equation there to make this really special development come to life.
Yeah, but even though it was the right equation, you still have to look at the fact that it becomes the right equation for everyone that's in our business, in the real estate business. So what happens is you get, after a period of a downturn in the market, you get a lot of people coming back into the market. So what happens is you start to see, a lot of projects being proposed, a lot of projects being, planned, a lot of projects being approved. And, when you see that happening, the risk is, especially when you're dealing with, high-rise condominium development, which as a project itself has a relatively long cycle. It's not like you identify a piece of property and, 2 years later, you're, have a completed building that you're delivering, to the buyers. These projects take much longer. So here, this project is a project that we kind of really started working on in the middle of 2012. And here we are in 2019, just delivering units to our buyers. So having a project like that has such a long cycle, and having a lot of other people jumping back into a market because the market seems to be getting active again, creates certain challenges, in the sense that during the course of the project that you might be getting involved in, there could be another dip in the market, or flattening, or pulling back, or there could be, a situation where you have too much being built too fast. So, in our case, what we wanted to do was we wanted to look at something that was really going to differentiate us from other projects that might be coming to market. I mean, we knew that some other people who were going to be competing in the marketplace had lots of projects that had, a very, what I would call more typical, condominium formula for development, in terms of the type of units that were being built, the number of units being built, the size of units being built, and who might be designing them.
And that is the challenge, right? You want to be the big fish. You have this pool of competition. What do you do? And in this case, what sets your development? What sets 1000 Museum apart from all these other developments that are going up?
Well, clearly the architect. I mean, we were fortunate enough to be able to get ourselves, at the time, one of, the most sought after architects, attracting attention for her work all around the world. And we were able to get her to take on this project in Miami, of a building type that was unfamiliar to the architect. A location or market that was someplace the architect had never done work before, and a very unique opportunity for us to bring forth someone into the market that just hadn't been here before, and would be somebody that we thought would attract a global buyer. So, we found that in Zaha Hadid. And like I said, we were very fortunate to be able to get her to undertake this project and design this building for us. Unfortunately, she didn't get to see it be completed. She did get to see it get started, but not completed. And, it was a very unique opportunity, and it was definitely a differentiating factor from a design standpoint. The other differentiating factor for the project is we did something that was really designed for the very top of the market in terms of price, in terms of level of finish, in terms of the size of the units. We had a lot of unique factors there, and even in the sense that while the building is on a site, this downtown site that's 1 acre, we're in the highest, most dense zoning in all of Miami that allows 500 units to the acre, and very significant amount of buildable area as of right. And while we could have built 500 units and, maybe almost 1.3 million in gross square feet for the building, we built just 84 units. About 1 million square feet that we actually built here in total area. And our average unit sizes are over 5,000 square feet. So a very unique project, very different for downtown Miami, where the average unit size is probably closer to 11 or 1,200 square feet.
So you said those 84 units. Tell me a little bit more about them. What kind of units are they? Like what are the layouts like?
Okay, so we basically have 3 unit types in terms of category of unit. We have a half floor residence, which essentially is just that. There's 2 units per floor. Those units go completely east to west in terms of flowing through the floor plan. There's a north half unit and a south half unit on the floor. That's one category of unit. The next sort of category of unit is what we call our duplex townhome. Those units also flow through units east to west, a north unit, a south unit, 2 on a floor, but they're 2 stories, duplex style unit. Those units are around 8,400 square feet. And then we have what we call our full floor penthouse units, which is essentially 10 floors at the top of the building. Those units are just that. They're full floor, 360 degree view. And those units are all, over 10,300 square feet. So, very large units, something that's just doesn't exist in the downtown market and really doesn't exist very much in the South Florida market, unless you were going into a large, single family home on one of the islands in, Miami Beach or Key Biscayne. So typically the profile of the buyer that is attracted to a building like 1000 Museum would be that international, global buyer that owns multiple residences around the world, may make Miami one of their homes, may have owned property here in the past, maybe not. We have, in buyers that we have over 20 different countries represented currently. We're very much interested in the buyer that might come here and may look at a large single family home on the water. We wanted to provide an option for that buyer, as well as the buyer that would typically come to Miami looking for condominium property. Many of the units that we sold here were sold to people that came to Miami to buy a house and ended up buying a residence in our building because it essentially gave them a lot of amenities and a lot of square footage that they would typically find in a house without sort of some of the drawbacks of owning a third or fourth residence in your portfolio. And having, sort of the level of maintenance and upkeep that comes along with, a property like that and not living here full time. So this, makes an interesting alternative for that, that type of buyer. And, owning a piece of architecture by a world-class architect, is another driving factor.
Yeah. So you definitely have some differentiating factors there between, just the size and the uniqueness of the units, of course, the design from Zaha Hadid. But I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the helipad.
Yeah, so we're also the only private residential building in South Florida, actually in all of Florida that we know of, that has a private airport on its roof, that you can take off and land a helicopter in. So that's a very unique feature, which, interestingly enough, to the type of buyer that we attracted, was something not just unique, but, something that, a lot of people were interested in, coming from, places around the world that, maybe that is actually a means of transportation for people, in places like Mexico City or, places like Sao Paulo or, other places around the world where people do move from rooftop to rooftop. So, it was definitely another very, unique design element to the building that was something that, no one else was able to offer.
Now, I know I set the bar kind of high talking about the helipad first, but are there any other, world-class amenities that are kind of, setting a benchmark?
Yes. I mean, like we made another sort of strategic decision, and we took the top two floors of the building, top two floors of the tower, which would typically be reserved for, some duplex penthouse or, some, very unique unit that someone might put at the top of the building. And so we basically took the top two floors of the building and utilized that space to create what we call our Sky Lounge, which is essentially a sky lobby type space that can be used for special events that the residents may want to, have in the future for themselves. So it becomes sort of like their private event area. That space has, a large space that could, for a special event, easily hold, a couple hundred plus people, overlooks the entire, city of Miami Beach, overlooks the bay, the ocean, spectacular views, probably some of the best from downtown. And also on that level is a private screening room, a private dining room, a caterer's kitchen, and a indoor pool that overlooks the city to the west, which we call the Aquatic Center. So having that as basically it's, everyone has access to the penthouse in the building, which is a unique feature. Not to mention, we've got other amenities at the base of the tower, which include, on the lobby level, we have sort of a business lounge area for the residents to use. We have on premise a private bank vault on premise, so that every resident has their own, safe deposit box, like you'd find in any financial institution, that's secured for them right on the property. We have sort of elevated level of security in the building because of the nature and profile of, these global buyers from around the world. And we also have, on levels 8 and 9 of the building, another pool, which is outdoor, unlike the indoor pool at the top, and a large fitness center and spa, juice bar, all sort of managed and operated, by the condominium association management.
So something in this level of class, with all of these amenities, with these incredible units, how did you decide to pair up with One Sotheby's International Realty for the project?
So Sotheby's, was a good choice for us in the very beginning of the project. We wanted to have a firm as a brand, much like Zaha Hadid, that was recognized around the world and recognized for, luxury properties, unique properties in any major market. And we felt that Sotheby's was one of those companies. But we also wanted someone that really understood the Miami market. One Sotheby's, they've actually sort of grown their brand locally to really, capture a lot of, luxury, luxury product in the entire South Florida market. But with the international reach of Sotheby's as a brand, we thought it was a very good fit for, again, adding, more validity and credibility to a very ambitious project with an architect that was known around the world.
So with this prestigious project, coming to a close, and the units are starting to be delivered to customers now, or to clients, excuse me. How do you envision, that 1000 Museum will kind of change the face of Miami in the future?
Well, look, we really raised the bar in terms of delivering a building that has very unique architecture, but very difficult to build. Obviously, we faced a lot of challenges along the way, some market fluctuations during the cycle. An architect that, as we were starting the project, unexpectedly passed away. Project obviously was all designed at that point, but not having the architect that we started with sort of there see the whole vision, come to fruition, obviously presented some challenges, we were so in terms of the ultimate building that's been delivered, it's very unique on the skyline. It's, super recognizable as this new iconic landmark, in the city of Miami, and it's gotten a lot of global attention. And as a result, all eyes are on this project, and that comes with more eyes being on Miami. It's a project that other projects in Miami in the future will aspire to be, and I think that it just raises the bar and sort of elevates the future of sort of luxury design and high design architecture in a city that's truly become a global city that people from around the world continue to come to.
Well, Louis, thank you very much for taking the time to join me today. I'm going to include some links to 1000, the 1000 Museum Tower in the show notes, so that people can see all of the incredible things that you and the team have worked on. Thank you again so much for joining us, and I'm going to let you go back to your day.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it. Let me know when you get into Miami, and we'll take you through the building.
Awesome.
Okay. All right, Eric. Thanks.
Recently, Julie Leonhardt LaTorre, the Sotheby's International Realty brand's chief operating officer, sat down with Tracy Velt, content editor-in-chief of Real Trends, to discuss how to recruit the next generation of sales associates. It's my pleasure to re-air that interview now. Enjoy.
Hi, this is Tracy Velt, Content Editor-in-Chief of Real Trends. Today on our podcast, we're speaking with Julie Leonhardt LaTorre. She's the COO of Sotheby's International Realty Affiliates. Welcome, Julie.
Hi, Tracy. Thanks, and thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to speak with you today.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do for Sotheby's?
Sure thing. So actually, I have a very untraditional path to arrive where I did. I started as a high school teacher in Los Angeles right out of college for a number of years. I worked for a couple of nonprofits as a project manager, and then wound up going to law school, where I studied and then became a commercial real estate finance attorney on Wall Street for about 6.5 years. I started in 2007, which, if anyone remembers real estate in 2007, our clients were Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns. It was a challenging time for sure, but also a great education. And then I wound up here at one of the greatest, luxury real estate brands in the world.
That's great. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the next generation of real estate agents. So tell me a little bit about who they are and what are some of the trends that you're seeing?
Sure thing. So we're actually really excited about the future of real estate here and really excited about this next generation of agents. We have a deep heritage in our brand, which makes us very unique, but it's also really important to us to continually innovate and bring about new technologies and forward-looking marketing so that we really are the place where this next generation of top agents wants to start and grow their careers. I actually had the chance to speak to some of our next generation agents. I got them together on a phone call, and what we heard from a number of them is that, they are growing percentage of our market, of our agent population. What I found it most interesting to learn is that they come from a lot of different backgrounds, as you would expect, but a number of them actually went straight from college into real estate, which was surprising to me. I thought of it more as something that agents come to as a second career. A number of them did come as a second career. We have one who was a Broadway performer, someone who was a political fundraiser. But one thing we heard over and over again was about the importance of relationships and how obviously relationships are at the center of real estate transactions and what they do as advisors to their real estate clients. And a number of them who did come from other careers were able to take the relationships that they started in those careers and leverage them and bring them over into their real estate career. For example, we actually, interestingly, a number of our next generation agents are some of our top performers. We have an agent, Jonathan Spears, at scenic Sotheby's International Realty down in Florida. He did 120 million in sales volume last year. He's number one in his market, and he's only 26 years old. So it's pretty incredible. In addition to being, really professional and a great real estate agent, he really is personal. He thinks about those little things. We brought him here to do a video shoot, and after production, he sent a giant bouquet of flowers to everyone involved in the process. Those little gestures that really make people remember who you are. So we've got some really successful next generation agents in our network.
Yeah, it's so interesting because you talk about how it's all about relationships for them. And most people would think the younger generation is all about hiding behind a screen. So do you find that they use technology differently than older generation agents?
Yeah, it is interesting because most folks do consider next generation agents, the millennial age group, to be resistant to face-to-face interaction. We've found it to be very, at least not for our population, and it may just be that the type of people who are, real estate agents are more gregarious and outgoing. But what we found is they take every opportunity to get together. We host a number of regional networking events around our network. And it's funny, I've run into some of the same younger agents over and over again in Denver, Vancouver, Austin, Miami, Boston. So they do get out there. They understand the importance of making those face-to-face relationships. With respect to the screens and the technology, they do use technology. And I think not surprisingly to anyone, most of them said that the platform of choice is Instagram. But what I've noticed, because I follow a number of them on Instagram and a number of our more traditional agents as well, the younger agents tend to post a lot more about themselves, about their life, about their pets. They post inspirational quotes, things about people who inspire them. So I think they post more things that are sort of about their more authentic self and who they are. And I think that for the younger generation, choosing someone to work with who they feel they know and they know what their values are and that they share something in common is really important to that younger generation of consumer. And I think that's where these agents are able to connect, use technology to make that initial introduction that then allows them to make those connections and build those relationships. So really, definitely. The technology is serving the larger goal of building the relationship.
Yeah, I see that as well. You talked a little bit about how this generation kind of wants something different than other generations. So let's talk a little bit about that. What are some of the differences and what are some qualities you're seeing in new agents? And are you seeing a difference internationally or just domestically?
So I think we see pretty generally across the board the same things domestically and internationally. It's interesting, more and more global we become, those differences sort of fall away, and there are more similarities generationally. I do think that brand matters. We did a study with the Boston Consulting Group, and the research came back and says that brand does matter. So for a number of these agents, they think that's an important part of growing their business is who they associate with. We did some research this year about our brand identity for the Sotheby's International Realty brand. And a couple of things came forward when we were thinking about why do people join the brand, and especially these younger agents. And it came down to professionalism and trust, the company we keep, and being kick-ass and cool, believe it or not. Surprising, but really exciting for a heritage brand like ours. So they do want the tools, they do want the brand. And, we strive here to get the right mix of heritage and professionalism and innovation and forward-looking technology to try to get that right mix of what this next generation of agents is looking for. It's interesting, Tracy, a lot of companies these days in real estate are calling themselves technology companies, and there's a lot of focus on technology. We think that technology is important, and we're always looking for the best technology to serve our agents or serve our clients. But we really do believe that technology should serve agents, not, we don't think that it will ever replace agents. These smart bots they're smart, but they can't do relationships the way that our agents can do. But we're constantly looking for technology that will help to support the role of the agent and how they interact with their clients.
Yeah, and that's a great way to look at technology. And I think people are coming around to that view of it as well. So let's talk about some specifics. What are some specific things that brokers can do to attract the next generation of agents?
Right. So this is important, obviously, because this is our future. So I think just like any agents, having a culture that people feel comfortable in, whatever that is for you, that's your culture. But I think generally having a place where people can be themselves, where you're authentic, where you get to know them, where they feel like there is some genuine sense of care, right? I think that's universal. Mm-hmm. That applies to all of us. I think that I would say to brokers, don't be afraid to take risks. I think this is a really interesting time in our industry. A lot of things are changing, and yet change is one of the things that people sort of fear most. But I think for brokers to be willing to take risks, to think about creative, innovative ways, whether it's the office space that they're keeping, maybe rethinking how they use office space, or creating offices that might be multi-purpose, that might become places where people come in and are able to socialize, whether it's the kind of technology or the marketing that they're doing. We've got people who use really creative ideas for marketing, things like bringing an artist in during an open house to draw people, to walk through the property, things like that. So I think being willing to take risks, to be creative, and to allow this next generation as they come in to express themselves. And, it's funny, people seem to get upset. They think millennials come in and think that they know everything and they want to just do it their way. I think they understand the value of learning from others. They do want to learn. They want to be great at their profession. They do also want an opportunity to express themselves and what they think they bring. And I think that it really behooves brokers to not overlook that. Because we actually can learn a lot. They can bring kind of a fresh perspective and new way of doing things that could actually benefit the entire brokerage.
Oh, definitely. So what can brokers do to help these agents grow?
So I think like I touched a little bit on the importance of education, especially for, younger agents, whether they're, this is their first job or not. We don't technically have first-time agents working with our brand. It's kind of the place where people come later in their career that they sort of aspire to be. But there are people who have great books of business, great relationships, other reasons why it does make sense. Maybe they come from a real estate family, but they still have a lot to learn about the business itself. So I think it's important for brokers and companies to provide opportunities for education, both formal education about the industry, but also an opportunity to share best practices with others, and particularly others that are in markets like theirs or that are at a similar point in their career. So one thing that I'm really excited about that we've been able to do this year is we started a next gen affinity group for our agents. And it's an opportunity for brokers to select sort of their up and coming, best talent, next generation of agents to come together. We host networking events. We do sort of trainings on the different tools and services that we offer and how to use them. And in fact, it gives them access to me and other members of the leadership team so they can really get, sort of indoctrinated into the brand, inducted, if you will, and have the opportunity to learn from their peers and also from other agents who've been in the business longer who can help to continue that education for them.
Yeah, that's a great retention tool. And are there any other newer strategies for retaining the next generation of agents? And what should your strategy entail?
Well, I think it's interesting. I think any sort of recruiting strategy is a retention strategy. The same things that are going to attract these younger agents are going to keep them with you. And I don't think it's not gimmicky. It's not about, having some secret plan. It's those really basic things that we talked about a little bit around recruiting, being authentic with people, getting to know them, showing them that you care, that you know when their birthday is, or, we've one of our older brokers who says he hates being on social media, but he gets on there. He wishes every agent in his company a happy birthday. He knows what they're up to. It gives him a way to connect with people and know a bit more about them. And that goes a long way in life, anywhere in life, really. But in terms of retaining agents, they want to be somewhere where they feel good, they feel they belong, they feel like they're able to express themselves, and they have what they need to get to that next level. So whether that's education, training, networking opportunities, right? The ability to learn from others around them. And then, of course, you've got to have the brand and the best-in-class marketing and all of those things as well. To me, that's the entry point. But the culture and the ability to, be part of an important network and have opportunities to grow and learn, I think is especially important for this next generation of agents. They're just starting their career. They're just getting started, and they can see how much they have ahead of them. And so they want, the biggest kind of open road with the most opportunity for them there. And, something that does continue to grow and change. You can't just create it once and then sit on that and be comfortable with that, right? Here we're constantly innovating and thinking about what's next. As soon as we do something, we're looking for what's the next thing. And I think that's important as well. That's the pace at which our world moves these days. And we have to keep pace with that world or we fall behind.
Yeah, definitely. And I completely agree with that connection between the broker and the agent, and that a little appreciation goes a long way to keeping an agent happy as well, as long as they have the other things that you also recommended.
I mean, they just expect to have those other things, whatever place they decide to be, right? They've gone there because they think that they do have those, the marketing, the brand, whatever it is. But the personal bit it's not hard, but in our busy lives, it's really easy to overlook. But it's so simple. It takes, 2 minutes of just calling someone out for a job well done, and it can make a tremendous impact.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Julie, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to Real Trends today. I really appreciate all of your insight about the next generation of real estate agents.
Great. Thanks, Tracy.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Reside by Sotheby's International Realty podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. If you're craving more Reside, visit sotheby'srealty.com/reside for more from this and previous issues of the magazine. Until next time.